My mothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, with the tawfiq and grace of Allah, we begin a series of majalis which we have titled Finding Peace in an Imperfect World, Balancing Acceptance, Action, and Hope. Before we get to our topic, though, it's really important to remind ourselves why we are here, what our primary purpose is. So the primary purpose of holding these majalis, attending these majalis has to be to give pursa to Bibi Sayyida. And, generally when we lose somebody in our family, we are on the receiving end. People come, they offer us condolences. We are the recipients of love and care. But this house of Zahra is so special, is so unique, that instead of us taking away, instead of us giving something, it is the house which keeps giving. So every time we are on this flash, we have to remind ourselves of a few things. We have to remind ourselves that we are not alone here. We know that Malaik are amongst us. And that is a part of our faith, that when there is a farsh of azab for Imam Hussain alayhi salam, the Malaika also attend. And when we remind ourselves, so it's really important to begin with a setting of intention. What do I mean by that? So we are taught by the Prophet ﷺ that every action begins with an intention. In fact, he says that it goes beyond that the soul of the action is the intention itself. Okay? So now all of us, we've had so many Muharram, and and for a lot of us, I know, but for me, I'm speaking for myself, it's on autopilot, isn't it? Like it comes, it goes, we attend majalis after majalis, we do the rituals, right? But part of what this farsh is giving us is lost. And that is the ability to transform our lives. This is the gift. It is really a gift in this world. And by the way, I've really looked far and wide. I cannot find another example of a community that actually pauses for 2 months plus a year. Pauses, takes time out from their lives, kind of reorients itself, right? We look inwards, we do things that we don't do on a normal basis. And this is the gift of the majlis. This is nothing to do with us, right? This is the opportunity that we have here. But in order to actually take something that will transform our lives, we have to begin with an intention. So, it's a really good practice at the beginning of every month of Muharram and Ramadan, and actually every day, to start your day, your time with an intention. What are you coming here for? And I know many of us come here because, we are really indebted to Nusera, for starting this. And, we feel we owe it to her, which we do, right? And we know the organizers, that's why we come. We know that there is another majlis, and we are told that we have this fire within us, right? That kind of ignites after Muharram. As soon as the moon of Muharram rises, something happens to us. A friend of mine in London used to say, Muharram ka chand utta, hum apni sab kali chadar pehen ke nikal jati hain ghar se, right? And that's exactly what happens. We kind of, like, I know many of us, it's the middle of summer, very precious to us in Toronto, right? Very, very precious. And many of us have just come back from holiday. Our houses may not be in order yet, and yet we are here. Okay. So what do we mean by intention? Start with asking yourself and making an intention while you're here. And when we make an intention, what happens is that it allows us to show up in a particular way. If all of us were to have the intention that we're here, first of all, to support Zahra, right? That is the primary intention. Secondly, the invitation from the family of Zahra is so that we take something for our lives moving forward, so that we can actually be called her followers, so that she may be proud of us. And if that is our intention, then our actions automatically change. Then we don't have to make announcements for parking. We just don't. Because if we are the guests of Zahra, if we are her guests, remember, all of us are equal, right? None of us is more, in Islam, this is the thing, when we are in a state of worship, the only thing that distinguishes us is what? Is taqwa, right? So nobody, has a claim to, when we show up with this intention, then people don't need to ask us, leave the room in a certain way, make sure that nobody else is inconvenienced, right? Because remember, the malaika are watching us. And so, so one of the intentions is, again, to be considerate of others who are attending the majalis. Very, very important intention, right? Another very, very important intention. The reason why Imam Hussain gave his life is to stand up to injustice. And this, by the way, more important now than any other time in our lives, for sure, because we are watching it in real time, we are experiencing it. We may not be in Gaza, we may not be in Rohingya, we may not be in Yemen, and yet we are experiencing it everywhere at our doorstep, right? And lastly, to pass on the message to others. Remember that Imam Hussein's message is not only for Shias. It is not only, again, and this is our responsibility, that when we live in a way that exemplifies what peace in this planet looks like, when we are free of conflict, when we don't wish ill on anyone, and yet when we stand up for our rights and when we take a stand on issues of justice, this is what reflects, because what Imam Raza Islam tells us is that how do people get to follow us? Teach them our sayings. How? By our actions, first of all. Because remember, again, one of the Masumeen teachers is that it's only when the speaking mind falls silent, that's when the actions of the speaker speak, right? So everything that we do, when we are coming here and our neighbors are inconvenienced, whether they be Muslims, Shias, non-Shias, it doesn't matter. It speaks something, right? It shows what kind of guests we are meeting. So let's all, remind ourselves, and we're all in this together. We may be making mistakes in one area and looking down on people, but believe me, all of us, right? All of us make many, many mistakes. So let's just take a moment to set an intention. And by the way, this will change your experience of Muharram. Because remember, all of us are going to be attending so many majalis, inshallah, on this. And by the end of it, if somebody asks, what happened? What did you learn? It's hard. It's hard to remember. So, a practice that I really recommend, and I really want to, because, many of you who know me, I like interaction. Like, I really get energy from your comments, from understanding questions. And obviously, in a format like that, this is not always possible. But take a moment to write down your takeaways. It doesn't matter if you remember the whole thing. It doesn't matter what you remember. What will change your life is what you do take away, right? So our tears are very, very important. They are the first step. They're the first step. And the second step is actually putting into action what we learn. So, if you attend one majlis and you can take away one thing and you use that one thing to change something about your life, is that not a fair kind of consolation to Sayyida Zahra, rather than attending 25, 30, 50 madaris and leaving unchanged, right? So, with that, the ayat that we have chosen, this meeting has ended, by the way. It said the host has ended the meeting. That's so. Here we have a salawat. It's just because I really feel bad when I get messages that this happened and I really have no control over this. So we can try and fix it. So, okay. So the ayat that I have chosen is from Surah Ala. Many of us are familiar with it. It's, one of the most, well, my kids tell me I see that word every ayat, but anyway. This is, it says, Bal tu'siruna hayat ad-dunya. Indeed, or nay, you prefer, we have this word in Urdu, mutasir. You know that word? Means you're so inspired, you are so involved, you're so distracted by the life of this world, hayat ad-dunya, and we know that dunya itself means what? Do you know anyone know what the meaning of the word dunya is? It means the lower life, right? Allah calls it the lower life. So you're so taken up, you're so distracted by this life, while the hereafter is two things, better and more lasting. وَآخِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَىٰ. Now, if we look at it, when we experience life, first of all, two things that we will all experience, right? So, we just went away on holiday to a really, really beautiful place in California. And it was spectacularly beautiful. Like, you really felt close to God. The ocean was just unbelievably beautiful. At one point they called it the restless sea because it was so active. Okay. The thing is that even while, so we went on many hikes and did all of that, and I'm still suffering the pain of those hikes. I did something to my back, I pulled my knee, you know what I mean? So even during all of that spectacular beauty, it was not free from pain. There was some consequences to that, right? And it's gone. It's finished. It lasted a very few days, and now it's only a memory, right? And in a few days, like unless a picture comes up or, my iPhone reminds me of a memory, it's going to be gone. Right? So these are the two qualities of this world, which Allah reminds us, right, about it. So finding peace in an imperfect world, what does that mean? Human beings, we naturally seek comfort, pleasure, and we want to be free of pain. Do you know what I'm saying, right? What psychologists say is that there are only two reasons why people do anything. One is to move towards pleasure, satisfaction, or it's to move away from pain. Okay. So for example, if you want to eat something, either you like something, right? You are enjoying it, or you're so hungry that you want to kind of end the pain of hunger, and so you eat. Okay. So these are the two motivations of life. Now, given that these are our motivations, what we experience on this world, like I said, even moments of beauty we find are so fragile, so fleeting, and there is so much, especially today, we witness so much conflict, so much stress, so much distress in every household, right? And of course, given what I do, that is what I experience, right? This is what I witness on a day-to-day basis, that how human beings hurt each other, how human beings are constantly in a state of drama, right? Relationship drama, personal drama. So some of our hardships we know are self-made, and we come to that, and some created by others, and then yet some created by God, sent to us by things that we have absolutely no control over. An accident, the loss of a loved one, illness, right? So the question that we are going to ask ourselves that is it even possible to find peace and happiness in this imperfect world? Is it possible, first of all? And if it is, or should we just kind of, because some of us do believe that, right? Some people, like you talk to them, they say, you know what, I'm very unhappy. I'm just going to wait for Jannah, right? People who are in very distressed relationships. Like I remember a conversation I had with one young woman who said, no, I'm just going to suffer through this world and, inshallah, I will get my reward in the hereafter, right? Is that what we're supposed to do? Or can we actually do something? Can we actually take actions, keeping our focus in mind, keeping that this world is temporary, it is fleeting, it is imperfect, and yet work towards our own well-being? So these are kind of the questions we're going to be grappling with. And as always, we will turn, inshallah, to the Quran as our primary text for guidance, and of course, the lived examples of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So, the idea is that we come up with a kind of a toolkit. So from and I'm requesting you again, at the end of every lecture, think what you have learned that you can possibly put in your toolkit for that day, okay? Because again, finding peace is a tall order. It's not going to happen automatically. We will need some intention and some hard work. But given that, we're going to be speaking about this, hint, newsflash, it is possible, right? It is possible to have peace, to have happiness in this plane of existence as well. So now let's get the house salwa. So the verses that we're going to reflect on today, inshallah, are about the nature of this world, and they're from Surah Hadid. And it's a it's 57, which is the chapter, and the verse is 20. Many of us have heard, many majalis, many lectures have been given on this, but let's look at it again. So in Surah Hadid, Allah says, it starts by saying alamu. Alamu means what? Know. He's telling us a truth, a principle of existence. Know this, what? Innamal hayata dunya. Indeed, the life of this world is only, is nothing else but, and then he gives a few things which we're going to go step by step. He says, Innamal hayata dunya laibun wa lahwun wa zinatun wa tafakur bainakum wa takasur fil amwali wa awlad. So how many things is that? First thing is what? It is laib. Laib means what? It means play. It is simply a sport, a game. Life is a game, I understand. Okay. And very, very interestingly, these words in the Quran, these words in this ayah go according to the developmental nature of human beings. It starts from a baby. What is the most important thing to a baby? Sorry? Play. That is what, so if a child is playing with a rattle or with a pot pan, it doesn't matter, right? If you buy them some very expensive gifts, which we do buy for the baby or for ourselves. For ourselves, right? We'll come to that in a minute. But for the baby, if you give them a cheap little thing, just something that makes noise, they're going to be completely enamored by it, right? And when you take that away, what happens? They completely lose it, right? They start wailing and crying and all of that. So this is the first stage of human maturity, is a baby which is completely enamored, distracted by play. Then comes love. Love means what? When your children, and for those of you who have children, say middle school and all, what is the first thing they complain about? Being bored. Being bored, right? Why? Because they want constant entertainment. They want stimulation all the time. So for a young child, the biggest thing in their life is entertainment. You take, by the way, if you really want to torture children, what you do? You take away their phone. Because it literally tortures them. It's like their lifeline, right? So that's the second stage. The third stage is zina. Zina is what? Beauty, beautification of self, beauty outside, right? And zina means what? So as we grow, teenage years, what is the most important thing? Looks, image. How are you looking to other people, right? What happens when when now there's hardly any difference, but in the old days, like what would happen if a young girl got a zit or a breakout before a big event? Tragedy, right? The world would be falling apart. Okay. So that is their developmental stage, that what is most important to them at that point is zina. Okay. Then you go on, you carry on, you become, you are kind of nearing high school, you are going out into the real world. And at that point, what you're doing, you're sitting exams, you're applying to university. And so, وَتَفَاخُرْ بَيْنَكُمْ means what? You are fighting with each other. You're competing in the race ahead, isn't it? Right? Especially, when you are applying to very competitive programs, it's you against me. It's not everyone's going to get in, right? So, and of course, as parents, we take on so much of the pleasure of when our children succeed, right? Okay, then we go on, right? Now we are young adults. Now we have careers. We are buying a house, right? We are buying a car. Do we look at our neighbors' cars? Do we look at our neighbors' houses, right? So this is what? This is takasur fil amwal wa aulad. So my child goes to a better school than your child. my child got better grades. We see this all the time. Okay, no. So isn't it amazing? Allah has described this entire kind of journey in how many words? 5 or 6 words. Okay. Now, interestingly, when psychologists study human development, age, so this you're talking about age, right? A little child, a teenager, a young adult, all of that. But it doesn't have to end there, because we can be stuck in a developmental age even though we are much older, right? So I can be stuck at Zina, right? Even though I am like way past that age, and then that's why I'm like get scared every time I look in the mirror. It's like, why am I aging so fast, right? So despite what I do, like nature is winning, okay? So it doesn't mean that we kind of leave one age and we, move on to the other age. It doesn't have to be like that, okay? And then Allah goes on in the ayats to talk about, he gives another example. He says, like the rain who's causing the vegetation to grow pleases the farmer. So, when the rain falls and there's a big harvest, when the farmer looks at it, obviously it's very lush, it's green, they get excited, right? It's very bountiful. Then what happens to it? Then it withers away, so you will see it become yellow, then it becomes dried up and broken down. It's gone. In one season, what was green is now finished. How many people here like to have fresh flowers in the house? Okay, great. Okay, really highly recommended, okay, for your mental and emotional health. What happens? No matter how long you think it, you bring it in, it's so beautiful, you enjoy it, and then before you know it, it's gone, okay? And that is the nature of this world. So, and then Allah goes on to say, and in the hereafter is a severe chastisement and also forgiveness from Allah and His pleasure. And this world's life is not but mata'ul ghurur. Mata'ul ghurur means that it is a means of deception. Deception, why? Why is it deception? Because when, the child is kind of, a young teenage person, it has broken out with zits, right? You tell them, what, it's really not going to matter in 2 years. Are they going to believe you? No. Because they are at that stage where that is the most important thing for their life, right? But what Allah is asking us to do, and we come to the fact that this doesn't mean that we don't use the word. This is not what the Quran says, okay? What Allah is saying is that look beyond all of this. When we say, for example, I work for a big company and I have a really generous boss, okay? And they give me a really important assignment and say, you know what, you have to go and deliver these papers to this person in this city. It's an amazing city. And because I'm so generous, I'm giving you all my points and you're going to get a suite at the Four Seasons, okay? And so you go there and you're like, this is amazing. You're like feather beds and fluffy slippers and all those robes and everything. You get so enamored that you forget why you're there. Like you actually forget to deliver the papers. Is your boss going to be pleased with you? It's not like he didn't say, don't go enjoy the hotel room. He didn't say that, right? He gave you the hotel room. He said, go enjoy it. But remember why you're here, why you're there. So the same thing, this word mata means what? It means pleasure, it means using, but it also is a tool. Mata is something that you use to get something else, okay? So let's see what Imam Ali alayhi salam says, okay? So Imam Ali says that it is, obviously, he recognizes that it's very easy to get attached. And because Imam Ali spoke a lot about the dunya, right? We know that. So when he, some of the people started actually blaming and cursing the dunya, that this is horrible and, we should be completely unattached. And so this is like, it's kind of a long hadith, but I really want us to take some time with it because it's really important. So Imam heard a man abusing the world and said, O you who abuse the world, O you who have been deceived by its deceit and cheated by its wrong, do you covet the world and then abuse it? Do you accuse it, or should it accuse you? When did it bewilder you or deceive you, whether by the decay and fall of your forefathers or the sleeping places of your mothers under the ground? So he goes on to say that people you've cared for have died. No matter how much you cared for your fathers and grandfathers, no matter how much you looked after them, they are gone. So, in fact, through the dying man, the world presented an illusion for you and showed you by the example of his falling down how you would also fall. So what is Imam saying? He's saying if we're awake, the world is actually not deceiving us. It's showing us again and again. When we bring that flower in, those beautiful flowers, right? And they die and they're gone. Why don't we know that this is the cycle of life? It's not, it's not a hidden thing. So he says, certainly this world is a house of truth for him who appreciates it, a place of safety for him who understands it, a house of riches for him who collects provision from it for the next one. It's a house of riches. Why? Because you have so many opportunities to use this world to get ahead. Right? This is what Imam is telling us. And a house of instructions for him who draws instructions from him. He goes on to say it's a place of worship for the lovers of Allah. Therefore, who can abuse it when it has announced his departure and called that it will leave? It has given news of its own destruction and the death of its people. Okay? People abuse it on the morning of their repentance, but there are others who will praise it on Judgment Day. So we always talk about how on the Day of Judgment, there will be so many people who are regretful, right? Who haven't used their times well. But Imam is telling us that there will be actually people who will praise it on Judgment Day. So who are these people? The world recalled to them the next life and they bore it in mind. It related to them the things of the hereafter and they acknowledged that. It preached to them and they took a lesson from it. So, so in other words, the fact that when we see, again, when we're awake, what does intention mean? Intention means to actually not do things on autopilot and to spend a life which is awake rather than asleep. Right? When we're awake, it's not a given that, that the world is headed to destruction and all of us are, right? When we recognize, when we have the mindset of a traveler, what is a mindset of a traveler mean? That we are here for a short period of time for a specific purpose. What is our purpose? What's our purpose? Sorry? These are okay, yeah. What else? It's our Allah. What else? Sorry? To get close to Allah. To get close to Allah. What else? How do we do that? How do we fulfill our faith and purpose? Right? Anyone here from London? Anybody else? England? Okay, good. So you watch the series Ready, Steady, Cook? No, probably. I'm really aging myself. Sorry. Okay, so let me tell you about Ready, Steady, Cook. Okay, Ready, Steady, Cook, you got a bag of 2 teams. They each got a bag of groceries. Okay. In the groceries were really random things that you think, what can you do with this? And different. So one group would get like potatoes and I don't know. Sorry. So potato onions would make sense, right? Like maybe potatoes and I don't know, whatever, ice cream. Okay. And the other group would get something equally random. Okay. And the whole challenge was to make something with your bag of groceries, and you would be judged not on what you made, but what you made given what you had. Okay. And that's exactly it. That is exactly it. You and I are not going to be judged the same way because we don't have the same capabilities. We don't have the same resources. All of us have different gifts, different things, right? So definitely one of the purposes we have been sent to this world is how we use what we've been given to travel through this life to build something for the hereafter. Does that make sense? Like in a very, very brief nutshell, right? And of course, Let me just give you one small example and then we'll move on. So, it said that if you go in a boat, right, and when you go on the ocean, the ocean is a means, right? It's a means for travel. You can eat from it. It can be beautiful. The scenery is beautiful, but it is a means of travel. So as long as your boat is floating on the ocean, you're good. You're going to get through, right? What happens when the ocean comes inside the boat? And if there's a hole or, by something, there's a lot of water inside the boat, it would sink. And that's a lot of ulama give this example of us traveling through the world. That, when we are traveling in this earth with the mindset that we are going through with it, with a purpose, with some sort of intentionality, then we are going to get on the other side, right? On the other hand, when we let the dunya completely kind of envelop us and come inside our means, then that is when we find ourselves drowning. And we talk obviously a lot more about it, but in this world, this is so much easier said than done. Listen, for those of us who are a bit older and who've gone through life, and when we look back on the things that we strived so much for, whether it is our careers, even whether it's our children, whether it is our looks, whether it is, whatever it may be, right? There comes a time when you realize that maybe the ladder, and you succeed. It's not like you don't succeed, right? So even if you, and I work with so many professional women, right, who are at the top of their careers, and they kind of realize that what all they had to give up to get there. And in a sense, it's, how Stephen Covey puts it so beautifully, that when you are climbing the ladder of success, make sure it's leaning against the right wall. Make sure it's leaning against the right wall. What does that mean? Even say, you give up everything because you want to prove something and you are working towards your career and you are at the top of it. And you realize, at some point, you may realize that what everything that you gave up was so transitory. The things that you're getting also are so transitory, right? And, is it all worth it, right? So this is, I know, a very heavy way to start a series, but it will, inshallah, get, we will have moments of inspiration and likeness, inshallah. So, I leave you with this, that, just think of how much the dunya is in your heart instead of your hand. How much of the water is in your boat rather than in the thing. And it's very easy, by the way, really easy. A really easy way to do it. What do you think of when you're praying, Sarah? I know people tell me nothing. Please teach me how. Sorry, when you are praying Salah, what thoughts are crossing your mind? Yeah. And that gives you, see, all of us, if we pay attention to what's happening inside, we have all the answers. That's what our works are teaching us. So very easy, very, very easy to kind of judge yourself, that what is like. Is it what's cooking tonight? It is what you have to write about, what you have to speak about, right? I mean, what is occupying your mind all the time? And like I said, please really take a minute or two to write down some takeaways, and if you share them with me, I'd be so grateful, because again, it helps each other a lot.